Morena Etefano, and welcome to another VidTalk live from lockdown. I think the last one we did, I was actually in MIQ, and we have another person zooming in, meeting us from across the world today. Last time it was my friend Claire in New York City talking storytelling, and today we have a very special guest. We kind of done a swapsy. I'm the American in New Zealand, and we have a Kiwi in America who is going to tell us all the tales this morning about life as a musician, life as a woman in a man's world and man's business, and how she has navigated her world over the past few decades. So I'm going to start by introducing Vanessa in a very, very short way. Vanessa McGowan is a Kiwi bassist in Nashville. She's a career strategist and a marketing coach for female independent musicians. She's the founder of Pro Music Guide. She's my friend, and I am so happy to welcome Vanessa here this morning.
Hello.
Morena, how are you?
I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm great.
Tell everybody why you are tired.
Because touring has just resumed after 18 months, and I am super out of shape with travel and just doing it. But no, very happy that it's finally back after all this time of just like waiting and hoping. And this is a tour that was meant to happen 18 months ago in March. We were in New York City doing promo for Brandy Clark's record, and we were literally the last band to play on the morning show and on CBS. Like, just closed it down. The next day the world stopped.
I mean, okay, I'll wait to invite you on the next show then. See you in 18 months.
Next pandemic on me.
I mean, we're still here. We're still in it here in New Zealand. Can you give us a little 3-minute kind of breakdown, Cliff's Notes version of who you are and how you got to where you're sat right there in that hotel room in Seattle?
Sure. So I am a North Shore kid from Auckland, New Zealand. I grew up playing music and you know, I can't remember not playing music, to be honest. I started as soon as I don't remember not playing it, but I started playing bass when I was in high school at Northcote College. I went to Auckland Uni, and then from there I was working in Auckland, but I went from there to do a master's degree at UNLV in Las Vegas. I got a scholarship to go study with a really great jazz bass player. So I have a couple of jazz degrees under my belt. And then from Vegas, I moved to London following love and following my heart, and then came back to New Zealand for a bit, and then moved to Nashville, Tennessee about 7 years ago with my band, Telltale Saints, who's myself and Simon Stanley. And we moved to Nashville to play as a band and also to pursue careers as session players and side men and women. And that's what we're doing. He's on tour with me right now playing guitar for Brandy. So we're doing it. But yeah, that's kind of how I ended up 30 seconds, how I ended up here.
Wow. Two North Shore kids playing the big leagues.
Yeah.
It's funny because Vanessa just said she went to high school at Northcote College. That's where my daughter goes. So small world. Let's kind of move into the professional side of things here. So Vanessa and I actually met probably 2.5 months ago. And it was this little magical moment of algorithms, and we can blame probably Tammy Nielsen. We'll blame Tammy for most things in life from now on. But as an expat myself, and as somebody who has really leaned into social media to build my career and to build my whānau here and overseas, how have you utilized social media? Because you've had to restart a few times, right? If you went from Auckland to UNLV to London and back and then to Nashville, how have you utilized social media in community building to become who you are now?
I think the thing with music, especially, it's also true of like lots of creative industries, but music is all about people. It's all about the networks that you have. It's all about it's about the friendships you build. I mean, people hire other people that they like and know. You can get opportunities from strangers, but it's more likely going to come from people you know. And certainly for me, like, social media really wasn't a thing when I first started playing music, because I've been doing it for a while. But especially coming back to New Zealand, and then also I think especially moving to Nashville, building a community of like-minded people in the music that I wanted to play, and sort of the people that were thinking the same way as me, who were trying to book tours and release albums and do the business side of things. the people that I found who were the most like me in that way were not in New Zealand. They weren't in Auckland. I mean, there are some. There's a great music community in New Zealand, but the friends that I found who were kind of like the same were in Nashville, but keeping in touch with them when we weren't living in Nashville was very much social media. It was building a community of people where you could start a friendship at a gig somewhere random or at a festival or at a conference, but the relationship, if it was only that one meeting, it would probably have ended. But the value of social media is being able to then continue that relationship and build that community and grow that network. But more importantly, I think nurture the connections and build a family of people around you, even though they're physically not around you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I get asked a lot of the time, especially when we start to think, you and I are of a similar age. Social media did not exist when I started as well, but it has helped me to, again, being not from New Zealand, New Zealand is quite small, right? And so being able to connect with like-minded people all across the world has been a big thing. But some of the time when I work with small businesses and when I work with creative folks, they think that social media is this real fast, quick fix. But it sounds to me like what you've learned over time is that nurturing, that community building takes time. How do you work with folks and teach them and ingrain into them the fact that this is a long burn? The business side of the music business isn't just this trying to get this one-hit wonder, this viral like sweet fix. How do you ingrain that into the folks you work with?
I think it's a mentality shift of like virality and speed can grow things quickly, but it doesn't grow things for the long haul. You can get something can blow up. I just saw something really recently, an example of this, where a woman was I think she was a business coach, and she randomly made a reel that was like about flying first class. And it was like the fun, something, it was kind of like a spoof thing. And it blew up, and she got like millions of followers, but none of them were the people that she wanted to have following her. Like none of them were the right people. And so virality and speed is not, it's one way to do it, but it's not a very good long game. And I think especially with musicians that I work with marketing stuff, it's about, first of all, trying to figure out who they're talking to, which I think a lot of people would have no idea to start with. When you're like, well, who is this for? And they're just like, anyone that likes my music. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. Like you have to know who you're talking to if you want to speak to them in a way that is compelling and is engaging and enough to capture their attention in this crazy world of like 3-second attention spans. So I think playing the long game, and it's the same in terms of like building a band's career, building your career as a session player, building your career or building your network as a human. I mean, we've known each other for what is 5 seconds in terms of lifetime. But this isn't, I think our connection and our similarities are unusual that they came together really quickly. Generally speaking, you don't meet someone and immediately click in a way that has a profound effect. Usually it's like very, very slow build, but it's like changing that. I think people think that if it doesn't happen like in a month, then they're failing and they should quit. And it's like trying to remind them that it has to be slow to last. It's a slow burn. I always think of it as like coals, like hot coals. Like you need your presence in the world is like hot coals. And that means that when something really amazing happens, like if you release a new single or you have a new album, you throw gasoline on that fire and it's going to explode. But if there's no hot coals to start with, you're going to throw gasoline on the dirt and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. It's also, if you know that you've got a little bit of a spark in those coals to begin with, when you launch something into the world, when you bring something into the world, you're also asking other people to come sit around that fire too, right? You're inviting people in and saying, come sit with me. And a lot of the time, the folks who come sit with you are the ones who have been there the longest. They're the ones who you have nurtured, like you said earlier. We have a really good question down here from a fellow called Pete. Pete wants to know, Vanessa, how do you know who to trust in the music industry? He feels like social media portrays things as a fleeting me versus them mentality. And I think this is really important. This is actually one of the questions I was going to ask you, but more around the lines of being a woman in the industry. So I know being a woman in the advertising industry for the past 20 years has not been the most gentle journey I probably could have given myself, but it has been one of the most rewarding. I imagine the same goes for you. So how do you manage those expectations of Vanessa putting Vanessa out and folks maybe going for what they want versus somebody else being a them? How do you manage that?
I think, I mean, the way I do that now is probably very different to how I did it 20 years ago when I first started. You know, like you grow into your sense of people, and you read people better, and you make a hell of a lot of mistakes, and you learn the hard way. But I think that it's about, first of all, knowing who you are and what's important to you. If you don't know what's actually important to you and what is your set of morals and ethics, then you can't determine if someone else fits into that. So knowing yourself first, I mean, it sounds like cliche and simplistic, but it's true. Like if you don't know what, like there are some gigs I've turned down because like I swear like a sailor and I am not precious, but there are some gigs that I've walked away from because I've been like, I'm not getting on stage with a bunch of like booty girls dancing and playing bass in front of other people. Like that's just not, it's not me. It's not what I want to put into the world. And there were times when I turned down things when I needed the money because I was like, I can't in good conscience go and stand on stage and do that. And so I think that it's figuring out what actually is important to you first. And I think as far as trust goes, I think that it's trusting your gut with people too. Like you have to, there is an inherent, I mean, your gut is a collection of true like scientific reactions that we have unconsciously, right? Like it's not a mythical thing. It's like when you meet someone and they give you a bad feeling, there's probably a really good reason for that. And I think always being able to read that feeling and acknowledge it and listen to it. But I think the key in the music industry that I've discovered is that if you are in a financial position where you are stuck saying yes to absolutely everything that comes along, you will make bad decisions and you'll end up working with people that are not the right people because you will feel like, well, shit, I can't make rent, so I got to say yes to this guy even though he sucks. And the thing is, if you can find, this is one of the things that I feel like if you'd asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said the exact opposite. But I truly believe now the secret to building a successful career in music is not relying financially on gigs as much as possible. Like, and I do have periods of time where 100% of my income is gigs, but it's not the only way that I can make money. And that has allowed me to say no to things. And saying no to things that you don't want to do gives you the freedom and the space and the time to say yes to the things that come along that are amazing. And if you're stuck saying yes, yes, yes to anything that comes along, you don't get to make good calls. And that's when I think you end up working with people that you shouldn't be and that you can't trust.
And that all comes down to boundaries, right? So not only do you understand your morals, your values, and your ethics, but I think having been in the industry as long as you have, it's a progression of experience, right? And if you going, actually, I'm going to be very cognizant about where I put myself, which rooms I put myself in, and the situations in which I want to see myself in the future. I'm like you. 10 years ago, Cassie was, putting chairs out to speak at any gig with a microphone. And just like that whole gigging culture of events and stuff. And now it's like, sometimes people just take the piss. And you're like, you know what? No. And I think especially as a woman, and maybe I'll ask you this, especially as a woman in the industry that I'm in, I'm amazed by how cheeky folks still are. After 20 years of experience building and of all the things that I've done, people will still have the cheek to ask me to do things that they know, first of all, I probably deserve to be paid for, and that they should be probably not asking. Do folks still kind of try to put you into a corner sometimes where you have to go, here are my boundaries and I'll stick to them?
I think in the music industry, a lot of people ask for things for free or cheap. And what blows my mind is the amount of times musicians will do something with no idea of what they're being paid. And they'll be like, oh, I didn't know I didn't know if I was being paid for rehearsal. And it's like, well, the rehearsal's over, so you ain't got any leverage. Like, you have to figure it out beforehand. And the thing is, I think that I have always been, like, people always say to me that I am very upfront. And I have never felt that I was particularly upfront because I don't know any different. But I have always been, I've just been always okay at asking hard questions because I never felt like asking how much I was being paid for something was unreasonable. If someone's like, hey, are you free on Saturday for a gig? The answer is yes or no, depending on the rest of the information. Like, I might be currently available on Saturday night. But if you want me to drive for 5 hours and learn 40 songs and you're going to pay me $75, then I'm probably not free. Like I think that musicians
Let me check my watch.
Like, let me get back to you. Hell no. But I just think that musicians, we have a tendency to live in the scarcity mindset, which is partly because we often are really like clawing for just anything that comes along, because we're in an industry that is turbulent, even at the best of times, even pre-COVID. We have very little control over when we're employed, unless you're actually out there booking gigs, which I also think is a good move for musicians to like cultivate and generate their own situations to perform. But unless you're out there doing it yourself, you're basically waiting for the phone to ring. But with that mindset, you can still say to someone like, you can negotiate. If someone's like, hey, I want you to play on Sunday, it's 15 songs and there's going to be a rehearsal. You can be like, all right, cool. Well, my rate is this and my rate is this for rehearsals. And if they're like, well, I can't afford that, you can negotiate with someone, but you have to have the conversation. And it can be done, like I do it politely and it's always friendly. And I'm always like, hey, I just want to get the like money conversation out of the way first so we can get into the fun stuff. But like people just don't ask the question. And then how do you make an educated decision if you like don't have the information?
Yeah. And I think, it's quite bold having been in New Zealand now for 20 years. I can tell you my personality has changed to meet the culture. Talking about money it's almost taboo. And especially for women, it is super taboo. So I take my hat off to you on that one. So shall we pick up? There's been a few actual fire questions coming through, so it's probably good we had a little tech hiccup there. Folks just want to know, like, pithy little question. What is your actual best tip for beginners in the music industry, women specifically and girls, so that they can walk out, square their shoulders, and just feel a little bit more comfortable? Because in this day and age, we know it's not like when you and I were starting in the creative industries. There is social media. There's the pressure to be the booty dancers, to show the midriff. Lord, I cannot imagine having to live through that. How do you start in a place where it seems nerve-wracking to start?
I think there's two sides to that. I think you have to be good. And I don't think that means you have to be like better than you imagine you could be. I just think it's a lifelong process of like, every time you realize you can't do something, you don't go like, oh, well, I can't do that. That's a shame. You go like, I'm going to figure out how to learn how to do that. Like the first time someone asked me I'm not real good still, actually. I can do it professionally and I've recorded it, but I'm not good at like the country slap thing because I never like grew up playing that kind of bass. But the first time someone asked me to do it, I was like, well, shit, I guess I got to figure out how to do that, because I'm not going to have a thing in my arsenal of bass playing that I have to be like, I can't do that. Like I think, first of all, as a musician, and I think this is true for men as well, but women still, the whole reason that I'm coaching independent musicians who are women is that I'm still so sick of the fact that we are a minority in the industry. And that on stages, on tours, on buses, everywhere you go still, we're still in the minority, and it's dumb, and it's been like this for too long, and I'm sick of it. So I'm dedicating the time I have to help women because I want us to be more present, and I want us to be equal. I want us to be on stages in equal numbers. So having said that, I think you need to be really good at what you do. And I think you just need to have an attitude of like, I will always learn more. Like, do you know how to set up a pedal board? No? Okay, go find out. Like, go to a guitar store and say like, I want you to build me a board, but I want you to show me why you're building it this way. Show me why you're routing the cables that way. Show me why you're putting them in that order. You can always learn. And if you're intimidated by guys, then go find women musicians who are out there doing it. I've helped tons of bass players figure out what gear they should buy for their upright basses and their electric basses and their boards, because I've spent time figuring it out. Like, I'm not an expert, but I have a setup that works and that I like. It's asking information, getting help, but just never settling for not knowing. Because then, which is the other side of it, then you can walk onto stage and you can walk into a rehearsal and you can be like, my shit works, I know what to do, I prepared the songs, and I'm going to slay this. And if you can walk in with that attitude, then the haters are always going to be there. And I'm sure at this point, I feel like I work with people enough. I don't work with strangers that often, so I don't feel like the little girl that's having to come into stage anymore. But when I was first starting out, I used to come out swinging with attitude because I was like, screw you. You're not going to intimidate me just because you're 30 years older than me and a dude.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I was aggressively proving myself, and it was fine, but it was exhausting, and it wasn't who I am at my core. And I think it actually, being able to let that go and be kind in my confidence. What I was going to say before when we got frozen, the answer to the question, what I would do differently, I would get to that sooner. I would get to confidence that felt peaceful and kind rather than aggressive, because I used to feel like I had to walk on stage and really truly come out swinging to prove myself, and it was exhausting, and I don't want to live in an industry where that is the way. So now I try really hard to come out swinging, like in terms of confidence, like I know what I'm doing and I'm gonna crush it, but I'm also not gonna bulldoze over everyone in the process.
Yeah. Two things I just took from that is, first of all, you got the words country slap on into this, which is fantastic.
You're welcome.
And then, yeah, thank you very much. My little heart did a little pitter patter. But I think the second thing that you really touched on there, and you and I talked about this a lot in our marathon sessions, is the idea of curiosity being your driving force, and that whole putting yourself in situations that could be a little bit like shaky. What does Brene Brown call them? The FFTs, the fucking first times, where you are a grown up, you are an expert in so many things, and then you're a rookie again. And that is the weirdest sandpaper feeling in the world, but it's almost welcoming that feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. And knowing that it's going to be there forever. Like I've been playing bass for over 20 years. I've been working as a bass player for over 20 years. There's still stuff that I need to learn. There's still stuff that I'm figuring out that I'm, every time I jump into a new band, there's something different that I got to figure out or could do better or something. Like you have to, first of all, embrace that you're never going to be the best, and embracing that you can improve and should improve is a way. First of all, it's the only way to achieve the dream of doing it. You can't just, like, the second that you sit down and go like, oh, I'm not as good as that person because they can do X, and you don't then take that as a cue to work on it, that's when you fail yourself. And it's not that you have to be like the best at everything. It's not that you have to know everything. It's just that you need to, like you say, stay curious and keep pursuing more, because that's how you become those players that everyone wants to work with and everyone wants to play with, because they're the ones that never stop learning and never stop growing.
Right. And those tend to be the kinds of people too who are very comfortable in leaning into the nuance and individuality of who they are. And I think that's what I loved about you from our first meeting, was that you are unapologetically who you are. Like, we can be dorks together, we can geek out, we can be experts, we can swear, we can laugh, all of those things. But in all of this, Vanessa is Vanessa, and you tend to bring that into the world when other people can't, or are afraid to, or are told maybe that they shouldn't. So I'm going to ask one more question from the audience, and then I'm going to get into a quick 5 questions that I did not tell you about, but I promise I'll be all right. I'll be gentle. In that idea of individuality, when women specifically in the music industry are looking to build the business side of the music business, how do you reckon is the best way for them to maintain who they are and to have those boundaries and to drive business now while still realizing that their creativity is their little secret sauce?
I think it comes back to the same similar thing I said before, and I think this is actually also the key for building an identity as a band or an artist or a brand, is that who you are and what makes you unique is the most important thing. And the day that you stop trying to fit into what you think you should be, and the day you double down on like your weirdness and your quirkiness and your, like, if you're a super dork, then like double down into that. If you're an asshole, then like double down. Like, it's just, you just have to be you, because trying to be someone else is super disingenuous and people will smell it and they won't connect with you. But also, I think another lesson in music and in life is like, chase the dreams that you genuinely want, because the worst thing that can happen is chasing a dream that is someone else's dream and achieving it and getting there and being like, oh shit, like I just worked real hard for 10 years to get here and it wasn't even what I wanted. Like, you have to figure out and it's like not only what you want I think you have to look at it from all the different sides. Like, how do you want your life to be? Do you want a family? Do you want to travel a lot? Do you want to live in the city? Do you want to live in a rural area? Like, do you want to work more with other musicians? Do you want to teach? Like, there's so many ways to have a career in this industry, and you have to figure out all the other elements too. Because I've been in bands over the last 20 years with people who were really good at music, but did not like the particular lifestyle they'd ended up in. You know, they'd ended up playing in corporate events or something, but they hated it because they weren't like the star. They've ended up on tour, but they actually hate traveling. And it's like, you have to think through what your goal is. Like, if you want to be the star of the show, then like, don't go play in a Broadway pit orchestra where you're sitting literally under the stage.
Yeah. And also be kind enough to yourself to know to change. I know you and I've talked about that whole climbing the ladder and then looking down once you reach the top and you're like, shit, I put my ladder on the wrong building. Being okay with climbing right back down and going, maybe this is the building that I actually want to climb this time.
Well, and 100% of everything that I say to everyone now is like 100% of it comes from doing it the wrong way for so long. And then turning around one day and being like, maybe I should stop like smacking my head against this wall and just walk away for a bit.
Maybe that would be a good strategy. Right. We are winding up. I've got 5 quick questions for you. Okay. You ready? Crack those knuckles. Here we go, girl. Here we go. First one. So what was the first song that you can remember that made you want to play music?
Honestly, the most formative record that was in my life when I was first, like, especially with bass, was Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is, I mean, I don't know what that says about me, but that was like one of those things where I was like, I think I want to play in a band.
1981 kid, you know it.
Yep.
3 things that people can do right here and right now to support women in music. You and I talk about this a lot, about being cognizant with our decisions. But what are 3 things that people can do to support women in music right now? Other than buy T-shirts all the time, because I have like 20,000 T-shirts.
Right. Yeah. I mean, put your money where your mouth is. You know, if you like artists, if you have, especially all artists, but if you have female artists that you actually appreciate their music, stop streaming their music on Spotify, where they get $200 if you spin their song 50,000 times. Like, start buying T-shirts and vinyl and joining Patreons. Musicians will only keep making the music you love if they can do it, you know, if they can pay their mortgage. And unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately, but the fact is the industry's changed, and now people, the fans, have power. They have power to fund and be true patrons of art. So if you are a fan, then, you know, keep buying stuff and helping those artists make the stuff you love. I think if you're a musician, hire other musicians and make sure that you are being consciously diverse in your projects. If you're a recording artist, I mean, I know that in some areas there are limited people in certain roles anyway, but like in Nashville, I have some friends, especially who are working more like in producer roles, who are very intentionally diversifying the people that are making records, you know, getting people in the band who are not just all cisgendered white men. And that, while like you want the music to be the best and you want it to be, you know, that to be the priority, there are brilliant players of all walks of life out there. And if you want to make a change in this industry, you have to start living that change. And I think that's only 2, but I can't think of a third.
I mean, that's plenty. I love that last part about being cognizant about the folks that you hire. And you know, it happens a lot in the industry that I'm in tech as well, and in marketing. Like, sometimes you'll see these manels all the time and you go, really, it only took 15 minutes for me to find you a Black woman to speak on your panel. Take 15 more minutes and find somebody else, because the more diversity there is, the better. And, you know, supporting women artists, like you said, buy the vinyl, buy the T-shirts, go see them live and in concert, or send all of your friends tickets when you can't be there. Do all that shit.
Yeah.
Be very cognizant of where you spend your money. Right. Yeah. 3rd question. You could tell 18-year-old Vanessa one thing. Go back in time and tell her one thing. What would it be?
I think I would say that it's okay to follow your heart, and it's okay to have other things in life that aren't career, and that doesn't mean that you aren't serious about your career. I was very tunnel visioned for a really long time about music, and I don't regret it, but I felt bad sometimes, like when I followed my heart instead of following. I mean, I literally followed my heart to London instead of moving to New York, where I wanted to go be a jazz bass player. I followed love to London, and that changed my life for the better. I mean, I don't regret it at all, but there were times that I thought, well, doesn't a serious musician always prioritize everything over, music over everything? And I think that is an unhealthy way to live, and I think that emotionally unhealthy people don't make good music. You have to have love, you have to have friends, you have to have adventures. The best thing that I have done lately is embrace the idea of having a partner who's not a musician. And I have an amazing partner who loves music but isn't a player, and in both senses of the word. But like, I love, 18-year-old me probably would have been like, I will only be with a musician because only another musician could possibly understand the nuances of my artistic soul. And that's just like a load of shit. You just need to like get over yourself and just live life. Without life, music is irrelevant.
God, I wish our 18-year-old selves could have known us now. I think they'd be pretty proud. What's the one thing you miss most about New Zealand with these bloody closed borders?
Oh, well, top of the list is my family. I mean, this is the longest. I've lived overseas for a really long time. I've been out of New Zealand for the best part of my adult life, but I've always come home. I've always got home at least once a year, sometimes twice. I had got myself up to twice a year. I was working to 3 times a year. I think COVID locked me out. So family, but I also just I miss the people. I miss the land. I miss food. I miss the coffee. I just miss home. I mean, I love, I love it here. And my part of my family's here. My partner's here and my job is here. And I love being here, but home is home. And I knew that I missed it whenever I was gone. I always got homesick, but 18 months of being locked out is hard.
Yeah. I feel you on that, because we have literally done the swapsy. I got to a point where I was coming home 4 times a year for work, and I was, being able to go to LA and see mom and dad and all those things. And holy heck, it's been a rough 18 months. Okay. So I know you're a little bit of a Christmas music fan. What's your favorite Christmas song that you'll be thrashing this year?
Well, do you know, funnily enough, I'm actually going to be in a Christmas concert, because that is the kind of nerd I am. Like, my friend in Nashville wrote a Christmas show, and he texted me and he said, I wrote a Christmas musical and I'd like you to play bass and sing a jazz ballad version of Frosty the Snowman. And I was like, huh. And I called Joke over and I was like, so this is like, I wasn't going to be in Nashville this particular week, but like, this is on the table. And he read it and he was like, yes, you have to do this. And then the follow-up text was like, and you'll have to wear an elf costume. And he was like, I hope that's like not a deal breaker. And I was just like, you just sealed the deal, buddy. I will be there. So Frosty the Snowman, jazz,
not a deal breaker. You're like, thumpity, thump, thump, thumpity.
I'm like, I like the cheese. I am all about it. I used to put like Christmas tinsel on the top of my upright bass when I did jazz big band concerts when I was like 20. And everyone else in the band was just like, ugh, Christmas. And I was like, yeah, Christmas sucks with my Christmas tinsel.
I really hate it. That's just not my bag.
I am not cool at all, in case it has not been already made very apparent.
You know what? I think the people who think they're not cool are actually the coolest people, because they're the ones who move through the world and are like, this is me. This is the space I take up, and I am just going to enjoy being in the world. And with that, we have done our time. We are at time. You and I are very good at going from 30 minutes to 90 like that. So I just wanted to thank you for your time. I know you were probably up until the wee small hours, buzzing away on a full room of people. You have another show tonight?
Yeah, we're playing Seattle tonight, downtown.
Playing Seattle. So have the best time. And I know I'll see you again soon, just not in public.
Thank you so much for having me. And like, if anyone has a question that we didn't get to and they want to hit me up via any of the channels, I would be more than happy to let them know whatever they want, because this is all about supporting you all out there.
That's right. Check out Vanessa at Pro Music Guide. She's on all of the socials, and you can also find her at Vanessa McGowan. Just do the little googs, let your fingers do the walking. Thank you so much, Vanessa, and have a blast. Enjoy every moment of the journey.
Thank you.